computer. All right.
Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're going to give everyone another minute or two to file in, and we'll plan on getting started at 10:03 Pacific, 1:03 Eastern. Awesome. It looks like we have a good group, so let's get this kicked off. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for PowerFlex's webinar today, Funding Focus Los Angeles. I am Annie Gala, head of the marketing communications team at PowerFlex and your host for today. I am joined by our speakers, Inaara Muhammad, Emma Shinall, Janelle Lindstrom, and Gabriel Strauss. This webinar will be recorded for PowerFlex's proprietary use and will make it available to participants afterwards. The presentation itself will last about 30 minutes, leaving 10 to 15 minutes at the end for attendee questions. The question function has been enabled so that participants can submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll address all of those at the end. So thanks again to everyone, and without further ado, I'm going to hand it back over to Inaara.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Annie. Hi, everyone. My name is Inaara Muhammad, and I lead the incentives team here at PowerFlex. We are excited that those of y'all who have joined are interested to adopt EV charging solutions at your companies and at your organizations. And we feel excited to introduce y'all to these funding opportunities that will ultimately reduce your costs to make EV charging available. So I'll begin by telling you a little bit more about PowerFlex, and then we will jump into a few programs that are specific to LA. For those of y'all who may have projects located around Los Angeles, but not directly in Los Angeles, we'll also cover some opportunities that you can still take advantage of. We'll have some time at the end for questions. And if we run out of time, you're always welcome to reach out to PowerFlex at sales@powerflex.com to learn more. So I want to start by telling y'all a little bit more about PowerFlex, particularly what we offer to help you reach your carbon goals. PowerFlex is a clean technology solutions company, making the transformation to carbon-free electrification and transportation possible through EV charging, solar, storage, and an adaptive intelligent energy management system called PowerFlex X. We help everyone from property development, sustainability, and operations teams to fleet managers, IT professionals, and drivers turn their sites into green energy hubs. How do we do this? PowerFlex has a suite of solutions that include commercial solar, energy storage, microgrids, and EV charging. PowerFlex also has an intelligent energy management software platform called PowerFlex X that helps our customers monitor and optimize their on-site energy systems. PowerFlex is your all-in-one provider for everything from site validation, development, construction, through operations and maintenance. And the best part is when you work with PowerFlex, you have one point of contact for all of your clean tech solutions and products. PowerFlex manages the project from conducting site visits to recommending appropriate solutions to actually developing and engineering the right fit for your site. We then manage the entire construction process, and once a site is live, we provide various asset management and maintenance services. We're here as your partner to make sure that the project fits your needs, and all you have to do is press the on button. So I'd like to highlight a few of the types of customers that we have been very fortunate to deliver intelligent clean energy solutions to. As most of y'all are located in the Los Angeles area, you may be familiar with the Los Angeles County, the LBT Center, Children's Hospital, LA. We are a national leader in carbon-free electrification and transportation. And for those of y'all who are unfamiliar with PowerFlex's history, PowerFlex is majority owned by EDF Renewables. The EDF group holds over 70 years of experience in energy and now over 35 years of experience in renewable energy. When you focus specifically on EV charging, which y'all are here today to learn about, PowerFlex is the #1 provider of large-scale EV charging solutions, and we are the 4th largest public level 2 charging station network in the US. We are proud to have installed over 15,000 chargers nationwide and counting. So now let's dive into some of the incentive programs in the Los Angeles area that have made our shared mission more affordable. As we go through each highlighted program, the incentive coordinator, who works very closely with program administrators, will talk about the program's incentive offerings, eligibility, and what the application process looks like. Please note that the programs we'll be discussing may often cover different scopes, ranging from make-ready programs to hardware-only programs. All funding programs, even when stacked with others, will fund different percentages of your project's eligible costs. In no scenario can you exceed 100% of eligible costs. Making a profit off of these programs is not allowed. As part of the services we offer at PowerFlex, our incentive coordinators will work with the program administrators to manage the incentive applications. So without further ado, I will dive into our first program. This is the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power's Charge Up LA program, and helps fund level 2s and DC fast chargers in the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power service territory. This is a highly competitive program where eligible applications are randomized into a lottery, but there is an exception with 501c3s, which are then prioritized within the lottery. The program does have a lot of money available. The last cycle that was conducted in January had about $15 million available in level 2 funding and $5 million available in DC fast charger funding. The next cycle does open June 17th, and then we're expecting the cycle after that to open in January, but that hasn't been announced yet. The good part about the program is that though it's competitive, you can apply after a project has been installed to be retroactively funded, as long as the eligible costs were accrued after June 1st of 2022. Something else to note is that the LADWP program and the LADWP utility does require that EVSCs on the same meter as solar meters, so known as a cogeneration meter, offer charging for free to their drivers without a fee. EVSCs on a separate meter are allowed to charge users a price to charge. PowerFlex Level 2 and DC fast charger equipment is eligible to participate in this program, and the program does require that chargers remain operated for at least 5 years. I want to highlight the eligible costs for LADWP's Charge Up program because over the last few years, LADWP has expanded their definition of eligible costs, and this is now a very generous program covering utility service infrastructure, EV charging infrastructure, and most recently, networking and maintenance as well. Please note that for organizations that are not tax exempt, chargers must be installed in addition to the required charging stations per the Los Angeles Green Building Code. Any costs incurred for the purchase and installation of EV chargers and equipment as required by the LA Green Building Code are ineligible unless you belong to a tax exempt organization. So now let's dig into the funding offered. For level 2 charging stations, the program provides up to $4,000 per charger for projects not located in a disadvantaged community and up to $5,000 per charger for projects located in a disadvantaged community. Depending on the number of parking spaces that your project has, you may be eligible for funding for up to 40 level 2 chargers. So as you can see, if you have a site with over 158 parking spots and you're located in a disadvantaged community, you're looking at a maximum of $200,000 worth of level 2 funding for up to 100% of project costs. In this scenario, disadvantaged communities are captured in the Cal EnviroScreen 4.0 tool, which can be found on their website and which we can help you navigate as well. For DC fast chargers, if you choose to install a DC fast charger option that delivers between 50 to 149 kilowatts per connector, you are eligible for up to $20,000 per charger. PowerFlex also offers solutions in the Tier 2 range, which funds up to $55,000 per charger. DC fast charger funding is limited by public accessibility. So if you have a site that is publicly accessible and does not have restrictions such as employee-only parking or student-only parking, you are eligible for up to 8 chargers per site. Please note that those chargers do have to be available to the public for at least 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, excluding holidays. Those that do not meet the public accessibility criteria can install up to 2 DC fast chargers. Please also note that you can apply for level 2 and DC fast charger funding for the same project. Those lotteries are usually conducted separately, so you do risk that only one part of the project is funded. But like I said before, the program does allow chargers to be retroactively funded. So if you get placed on the waitlist or part of the project, say your level 2s get funded, but your DC fast chargers do not, you can always reapply next round. So you may be wondering what the actual application process looks like for LADWP's charger program. The program does require that you go through something called EV service planning and apply for a permit at a minimum before submitting an application. So in this case, PowerFlex will work with you to conduct a site visit and begin designing your project. We'll work directly with LADWP's EV service planning department to gather a complete design submittal package and then submit for a permit. Once we have that letter from LADWP that confirms that the full EV service design package has been received, we will then gather your application materials and work with you to apply into the next available cycle of the program. After the lottery is conducted and you're given that your project is selected, we then receive a confirmation email and then have 3 months to obtain an approved permit. Simultaneously, we'll continue working with the LADWP EV service design group to finish the service design process and obtain an adequate facilities letter. This adequate facilities letter confirms that your facility, your project, is able to accept the EVSE load. Once a permit and adequate facilities letter is received, we will then begin construction, final inspection, and then gather and submit final documentation for you. This includes invoices, photos, contracts, all the other things that require signatures we'll work with you to get. And then once LADWP reviews and approves everything, they'll confirm the rebate, and the rebate recipient will receive the payment by check. So though the process is lengthy here, I do want to emphasize that this is a great funding program, and PowerFlex will be with you every step of the way to make sure that you receive the rebate in a timely manner. I'll now pass it over to Emma to introduce the next program.
Thanks, Inaara. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Shinall. I am another incentive expert here at PowerFlex, based out of San Diego, soon to be based out of Arizona. And I oversee participation in the Communities in Charge program. So this program has been around for several years now. It is currently closed, but their third cycle is going to be opening on June 11th, so just a few weeks away. This program is open to level 2 projects only. And one of the great things about this program is its site eligibility is pretty wide. So any public and private sites across California are eligible. So workplaces, MUDs, hospitals, public transit hubs, etc. All chargers need to be shared use for this program. So that does not mean publicly accessible. That just means, I think the best example is if your project is happening at an MUD, the chargers can't be dedicated to a specific unit or a specific individual at any of the installation sites. So a little bit about the application process for this program. When you apply, your application is going to be placed into one of 3 tiers. And then following that tier placement, it's going to be assigned a certain amount of points. So the tier portion of this is probably the most important. And you'll see over here on the bottom right-hand side, these tiers are going to be based off project readiness. So the program really prioritizes projects that are already ready to go and have an issued permit for their EV project. So,
I think that I'm going to try to redo this. I think we're having a couple technical difficulties.
That's okay. So I'll keep talking through the tiers.
Yeah.
Tier 1, like I said, requires an issued building permit. Tier 2, you would qualify for that tier if you at least show proof that you've applied for that permit. So you have that permit application, doesn't need to be issued yet. And then tier 3 means you haven't even applied for the permit. You're still in that preliminary design stage, and you at least have those preliminary designs to show with your application. Now, kind of the important part of this is historically, this program in its first cycle did not fund anything outside of that tier 1 opportunity. So that's what I mean when I say they really prioritize project readiness. For cycle 2 that just ended this past December 2023, unfortunately, those applications still have not been awarded funding. So I can't speak to if that would be the same scenario where they only ended up funding tier 1, We're hopeful that a few tier 2s would sneak in there as well. But that tier 1 status is really what you're going to be looking for, and PowerFlex can absolutely help you hopefully achieve that tier. Our project managers work in AHJs all across California. They know the context, they know the process. So we can really help support you in getting that tier 1 application. And then following that tier 2 or that tier assignment, you're going to be assigned a series of points, which you can see that breakdown here on the right-hand side above the readiness tiers. These points are going to be based off disadvantaged community status, low income, tribal land status, etc. So please reach out to us if you have a specific site in mind and want a breakdown of what your application pointing, assignment, and things like that might look like. Alrighty, next. Okay, so funding for the program. First, I want to cover some of the port minimums and maximums for this program. So those are going to vary by site type. So for workplaces, you'll be required to install a minimum of 4 ports and a maximum of 40. And Communities in Charge considers a workplace application a project where it's obviously being installed at a workplace, but the chargers are going to be presented in preferential benefit to the employees. So that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be employee only. Maybe you're charging a fee that's lesser for employees. Maybe a portion of the chargers being installed are just for employees, the other will be publicly accessible. So that's kind of what the program defines workplace as. For MUDs, you're looking at the same 4 minimum ports, 40 maximum ports, and then all other site types, so kind of public parking lots, things like that, public transit hubs, you're looking at 4 minimum ports and then a 20 maximum to be installed. So to kind of summarize what funding for this program would look like. So the base incentive is going to be $3,500 per port, or 75% of eligible costs, whichever ends up being the lesser. So to put it in perspective, for a workplace, you could be looking at up to $140,000 in incentives if you install that 40 port maximum. For MUDs, you'd be looking at $280,000 in incentives for that 40 port maximum, because MUDs actually get double that base incentive. And then for all other site types, you'd be looking at around $70,000 in incentives for that 20 port maximum installation. Alrighty, next slide. And I just want to shout out, similar to Inaara with LADWP, the awesome eligible cost list with Communities in Charge. One of the standout items here, beyond just the chargers, design and engineering, installation, is going to be new utility service. So often this is not, like, utility upgrade costs aren't included in these more private incentives that aren't coming out of the utility. So I wanted to highlight that. Super great program, super great eligible cost list. And then we'll move into the next slide and talk a little bit about the process timeline. So as I mentioned on the very first slide, the upfront work for this application is a little more involved. PowerFlex will work with you to come up with a design that best fits your site and your site's needs. We will go ahead and move forward with the permitting process to try and secure that issued permit before we prepare and submit the application. Once we submit the application, we will wait. The turnaround time with this program does take several months. So you're looking at probably at minimum a 60-day turnaround time, and where they will come back with a conditional incentive award. Once we receive that, we'll be able to schedule the construction, move forward with the project. And along the way, as the project progresses, we'll be able to support you in collecting all the necessary final documentation to submit back to the incentive program. And then once the construction is actually complete, we will submit all that final documentation. We will coordinate any back and forth with the program if they have clarifying questions about what we've submitted. And then following that approval of the final documentation and the chargers are operational, the program will pay out the rebate recipient. And then PowerFlex will continue to support with this installation for the next 3 years, completing the reporting requirements on your behalf to Communities in Charge. So quick highlight, this program is reopening for its third cycle, June 11th. It will close on August 9th. So we have about a 2-month time window there. So please reach out since this is kind of a fast acting, super competitive project and you need that permit in advance. So reach out to us if you have a project that you think might be a good fit and we can work on it. Alrighty, I will go ahead and pass it over to Janelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Lindstrom. I'm one of the incentive experts based in San Diego at PowerFlex, and I help to coordinate the Glendale Commercial EV Charging Station rebate with the City of Glendale Water and Power. So jumping into the program overview, this program is open to commercial and multi-unit dwelling customers within Glendale Water and Power territory. Funding is offered for both L2 and DCFC stations, and the program has a fairly flexible application window in that we can apply either pre or post installation. If you do plan to apply for funding post installation, you must submit the application within 6 months of the installation date. So this program is currently at capacity. New applications are still being taken on an active wait list though. So an important thing to note is if you do plan to apply for a project that is not yet installed, the program does require you to complete construction within 4 months. So this is a fairly short window, but it actually works to our advantage since there's more of a chance that projects in the program will drop out. So because of that, we still would encourage you to apply as there still is an opportunity to move up in the wait list and receive funding if other projects in the program do not meet that 4-month construction deadline. I would also especially encourage you to apply if you are looking to get funding for an already installed project, since those applications will get prioritized for selection over projects that have not been installed yet. Just remember these sites must have been installed within the past 6 months to qualify. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's jump into funding. So base rebates cover up to $50,000 or 50% of the eligible project costs, whichever is the lesser amount. There's also enhanced rebates of $75,000 or 75% of your eligible project costs, whichever is less. And that is available to sites that fit at least one of the following criteria. So that includes projects with at least one publicly accessible EV charger, projects with at least 150 kilowatt and up DCFC, income qualified housing structures, sites that fall within a disadvantaged community. And if you look to your right, that's a map reflecting those disadvantaged communities in Glendale. And lastly, tax exempt nonprofits. So if you fall under this criteria, you will be eligible to receive $25,000 or 25% more in funding to help cover your project's costs. So an important thing to remember is in both rebate scenarios, there is a cap of $75,000 per entity per fiscal year. So eligible project costs include the actual charging stations and their installation. Make-ready infrastructure costs may be approved, but those are on a case-by-case basis with program administrators. So if you have any make-ready costs and you are curious what would be covered under the program, our team will help coordinate with the utility on your behalf in determining those eligible costs and ultimately calculating the maximum rebate you can expect to receive. So lastly, another great perk of the program is we are able to stack with other funding programs and state grants just to help maximize the amount of savings you can get for your project. Next slide. Okay, so customer timeline. So first, our team will work on completing the site design. And as you know, we do have those two options where you can either apply pre or post installation. So if you would decide to apply pre-installation, our team will work on securing the necessary permits before officially sending in the application just to ensure we're on track with the program's deadlines. We do recommend applying post-installation, considering one, our application will be prioritized for selection on the wait list, and two, we can just avoid that 4-month construction deadline altogether. So once your application is submitted and approved, Glendale Water and Power will send us our conditional incentive award. From there, PowerFlex will move forward to scheduling construction. So once construction is completed, our team will go ahead and collect and submit those final documents for approval. We'll also get the chargers turned on and energized. And once all the final documents and invoices are approved, Glendale Water and Power will issue the rebate payment within 90 days. So after that, there are no reporting requirements post-installation for this program. So once payments received, we are good to go. So yes, this is a very simple and straightforward program. If you are interested in taking advantage of funding, please feel free to reach out to our team at sales@powerflex.com. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions and help you apply. That wraps up that program. Now we'll hand it off to Emma again to go over the next program.
Alrighty, thanks, Janelle. So I also oversee participation in the Pasadena Water and Power EV charging rebate. So this program's been around, I want to say, for several years now. They've changed their maximum funding amounts and different rebates over time. But funding is still currently available, and they're accepting applications on a rolling basis. They're open to pretty much any site type: commercial sites, workplaces, nonprofits, MUDs. They will fund level 2 and DCFC projects. You will need to be located and have an account with the Pasadena Water and Power. And applications for this program can also be submitted either pre or post installation. The pre-installation option, you do need to have an issued permit before you can apply, though. And then if you went the post installation option, we would need to have that application submitted within 90 days of that installation happening. And then all PowerFlex equipment is currently eligible for this program as well. Now we'll dive into the funding. So the base incentive for this program is $3,000 per port, up to $75,000 per site. And the eligible costs that those per port rebates can cover is the equipment itself, the installation costs, and the permitting fees that you may have incurred. So there is some bonus incentive opportunity with this program. Basically, the bonus incentive is just double that base incentive. So $6,000 per port is available for projects that fit one of these following. So if you're installing a DCFC equipped with a CCS connector, you automatically get that $6,000 per port. If you're installing charging stations that are going to be accessible to students and patrons of schools recognized by LA County Department of Education or the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, you automatically get that $6,000 per port. Any stations installed in eligible income qualified housing projects as defined by Pasadena, you automatically get that $6,000 per port. And then any charging stations located in a disadvantaged community, which you can see that map over here on the right-hand side, you'll get that $6,000 per port as well. So please reach out to us if you want to see if you fit one of these bonus incentive opportunities. We can help guide you through identifying that. And then we'll move into the actual project timeline or application process timeline. So as I mentioned before, we typically submit these applications with a permit in hand. So PowerFlex will work with you to come up with an installation design that best fits your site and your site's needs. Then we will complete the permitting process for the project, and then we will prepare and submit that application with the permit to PWP. PWP has an amazing turnaround time. I don't even want to say 4 weeks. Usually they get back within 2 weeks. They're very willing and wanting to get that funding allocated. So we'll receive kind of their go-ahead to move forward with the project. PowerFlex will complete the installation, and along the way, we will collect all the necessary final documentation to send back to PWP. And then once we do that, we'll have a little bit of back and forth to, answer any clarifying questions that the program might have. And PWP does like to conduct their own inspection of the chargers once an installation is complete. So we'll help coordinate that communication between you and Pasadena Water and Power to make sure they schedule an on-site inspection that works best for your site. And then once that inspection is done and all things are good to go, the program will pay out the incentive to the rebate recipient via check. And then PowerFlex will continue to support on the project for the next 5 years by giving Pasadena Water and Power access to our data reporting system and kind of coordinating that reporting needs with them. So like I said, funding's still available for this program. I'm not currently aware of when they anticipate the rest of funding to be exhausted, but they're continuing to accept applications on a rolling basis with a really quick turnaround. you have that benefit of either pre or post installation applications. So please reach out if you'd like to learn more.
Thank you, Emma. We'll now jump into some programs for folks who may have projects located just outside the Los Angeles area. I'll hand it right back over to Emma.
Alrighty. So I also oversee all rebates related to Southern California Edison, specifically SCE Charge Ready program. So a few years ago, SCE Charge Ready came out with several offerings, new construction offerings, infrastructure rebates, multifamily dwelling rebates, but just recently they relaunched their charging infrastructure program. So this is a highly competitive program that doesn't have an official closing date. So closing is just happening when funds are exhausted. I think the latest we heard was they have only around 1,000 ports left to fund. So I'm estimating that this will be closing sometime July 2024, so just a few months away. A little bit about this program. So this isn't necessarily a rebate, it's more of an incentive offering. So SCE is going to handle all of the design, construction, and installation of all of the utility side and customer side infrastructure needed for your charger installation. So they're looking for projects installing level 2 chargers only, and they're looking for slightly bigger scale projects. So looking for a minimum of 20 or more ports. The site eligibility is pretty wide open, so any kind of non-residential site, but MUDs are eligible, so commercial workplaces, etc. And then a few just additional requirements. So sites must be located within a disadvantaged community. You'll see SCE's DAC map over here on the right-hand side. You will need to install a dedicated meter with the project. You'll also need to enroll in one of SCE's demand response programs. And you'll also need to agree to operate and maintain the charging stations for a full 10 years, which PowerFlex, I'll get into in our timeline, will kind of help support in that area. And we do have eligible equipment for this program. All right, next slide. Get into the fun stuff. So funding for this program, as I mentioned, there's not a specific rebate. You're not going to be receiving a check for this program, but SCE is going to cover 100% of the costs associated with getting your site ready to install chargers. So you will be responsible for the purchase of the actual chargers, and there's not currently any rebates for the chargers, networking, or maintenance. But this can be of huge value, especially if your site doesn't have existing chargers and you have a lot of utility upgrades needed. Alrighty, next slide, please. And then the process timeline for this. So PowerFlex will work with you to come up with an installation design that best fits your site. We will prepare and submit that application to SCE. And then within 30 to 60 days at most, we'll hear back from SCE approving the application, and then we'll enter what SCE calls their conceptual design stage. So SCE will schedule a site walk at your site. They'll walk the site and begin the process of coming up with their own design for the work that they'll be doing to prepare the site for the installation. So once they have that conceptual design completed, they'll send it over to us and yourselves, and we'll review that, walk you through it, and we're welcome to go back and forth with them. But eventually we'll reach a point where we approve the design and we can go ahead and schedule the construction process. So SCE will come in, complete their infrastructure work first, and we stay in constant communication with SCE. So that way, as soon as they're done, we can mobilize and get in to actually install the chargers. And all along that project in progress stage, we will be supporting by collecting all the final documentation needed to submit back to SCE. So once all the construction is actually completed and we submit all that final documentation, SCE reviews that. We'll be there to answer any clarifying questions for them. And then once that documentation is approved, they will pay the incentive out to the rebate recipient. Well, actually, technically, they don't pay out anything. Sorry to clarify that. It'll just be offsetting 100% of the costs that were incurred with all of those upgrades. But then PowerFlex will continue to submit reports for the next 10 years on your behalf to meet those reporting requirements for the program. Alrighty. And then right into another SCE Charge Ready program. So their DC Fast Charger program opened just a few months ago. This is another highly competitive program that's actually coming to a close May 31st, so just a few days from now. This is similar to the Level 2 program offering, just a little bit different. So SCE will cover, like the Level 2 program, the work and costs associated with the utility side infrastructure. But with this program, they're only going to offset and cover a portion of the customer side infrastructure. But then a bonus with this program is they do offer rebates for the actual charging equipment in addition to those infrastructure cost coverages. So they're looking for projects with this program that are installing at least 2 charging units, each unit with 2 ports. So 4 ports total. And both units need to have at least 1 CCS connector and then 1 CHAdeMO or NACS connector. All non-residential sites are eligible for this program. And then a few additional requirements. So SCE is prioritizing publicly accessible projects. So they don't define that as 24/7, 365 days a year. They kind of define it within reasonable operating hours. So they would prefer an application who's installing chargers that would be available to the public, let's say 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. But that's all kind of discretionary. It's not clearly defined, and they'd be open to seeing a variety of applications with different public accessibilities. You will need to install a dedicated meter with your project. You'll need to enroll in a demand response program. And just like the last program, you'll need to agree to operate and maintain those charging units for a full 10 years. All right, next slide, please. Alrighty, so the funding, like I mentioned, SCE is going to cover 100% of those costs associated with the utility side infrastructure work that's required. They're not going to cover 100% of the customer side work with this program, but they will agree to offset a portion. They don't put out funding numbers or percentages up front. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis once they do their initial site walk and assessment. And then the added bonus with this program is going to be the actual charger rebates. So if your site is located within a DAC and is not a Fortune 1000 company, you could receive $40,200 per charger. And then for all other sites not in a DAC that include Fortune 1000 companies, you could receive $10,050 per charger. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the application process kind of timeline for this program is pretty similar to the Level 2 program, just a little bit more upfront work. So as always, we'll help come up with a design that best fits your site. And then as we prepare the application, SCE also requires for their DCFC projects, these very specific and detailed design files. So we will coordinate all of that, finalize those, and submit that with the application. Then everything kind of remains the same as the Level 2 program I already covered, where they'll approve our application, come back, we'll go through the conceptual design process with SCE, finally reaching an approved design that everyone agrees upon. And then SCE will come in, complete their infrastructure work, we'll come in, complete the installation. We will submit all the final documentation to SCE once the project's complete. And once they review that, if you're receiving that charger rebate, they will pay that incentive out to the rebate recipient via check. And then PowerFlex will continue to support in the data reporting needs on your behalf for the next 10 years. Alrighty.
Thank you, Emma. We didn't get a chance to cover all the incentive opportunities in the Los Angeles and Greater Los Angeles area. So I want to really quickly highlight a couple of the ones we didn't have time for today. Anaheim Public Utilities also offers incentives for Level 2 public stations and additional incentives for those stations that are located in schools and low-income multi-unit dwelling buildings. Though the program is closed, it is expected to reopen. And that's the same thing with the South Coast Air Quality Management District. That is a grant that's currently closed, but expected to reopen and has a lot of money available for installation. The Golden State Priority Project is a DC fast charger only program that does offer up to $100,000 per connector. The next cycle has not yet been announced, but we do expect it to be announced soon. And eligible DC fast chargers, eligible level 2s in California can participate in the Low Carbon Fuel Standard program. This is a market program that's overseen by the California Air and Resource Board and allows you to earn credits for the usage of your chargers. That wraps up our funding focus webinar for today. We are running out of time, so we only have time for one question. But if your question does not get answered today, please feel free to reach out to any of us at sales@powerflex.com, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. So our question today that I picked out is, what are common challenges for organizations applying for clean energy funding? I can start and highlight a couple things, and then Emma and Janelle, if y'all want to jump in. Two of the common challenges I've seen is one, being unprepared for the application and what it asks for, and two, not acting quickly enough. And sometimes those go hand in hand. If you have a program that requires a lot of work ahead of time, it requires engineering, or requires permitting, and you don't act quickly enough and make those decisions quickly enough, then we're unable to be qualified to be able to apply to these programs. Other times programs are highly competitive and funding can run out within days of it being released. So it's very dependent, and that's why it's very important to be able to figure out your project and figure out the necessities for those funding programs, which is why we're here. It's what we do. And then Janelle, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I would just add to that, as these programs come about and new cycles come about, eligibility and the fine print is getting more and more complicated. So sometimes it can be simple read over the website, but it actually turns out, there are more detailed nuances to the eligibility and the funding that's posted on the website. So it's really important to read through the implementation manuals, which is why working with our team is so great, because that's our job. We have read implementation manual over implementation manual constantly. That's what we do all day. So we really know how to pinpoint those nuances and make sure that we're really estimating incentives accordingly, and what to expect throughout the process. So.
Yeah, I agree. And just to add on to that, I would say something I've seen in my experience is just not having a clean application or submitting the required documents or necessities, not like submitting all of them to be fully completed. I think that's also been a challenge that I've seen. It just like delays turnaround times, which could have a domino effect, as some of you may know. And also, it just is more appreciated by the program. It's important to build that relationship and just be sure that all the projects we're submitting are very clean and tidy. And we're very timely with submitting documents as well. But that's what our team is here for. We study these programs very heavily, prepare for them to be sure that everything's clean when we're submitting things.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma and Janelle. This about wraps up the amount of time that we had today. I see a few questions specific to projects. If you have a question that's specific to a project, please email us at sales@powerflex.com and we can help you navigate these funding programs. Thank you and have a good rest of your day. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.